Hi, I am going to start. Thank you so much, Chris and Wen. I am welcoming you both, Chris and Wen, to my podcast and live stream Facebook. Chris and Wen, I'm so honored to have you today. You guys successfully converted your old, was it 64 home? It's
63. Yeah.
super efficient green home. And with DIY, that's the most exciting part. So I just want to first of all ask you a little bit about yourself. If you can each tell me briefly about who you are, what's your background? I know that you had to have some kind of a background in doing the, DIY. So
Sure.
go ahead.
I'll let Wen go first.
Oh, okay. So my name is Wen Lee, and I grew up in Southern California, actually in the house that we're in right now. And my background is in environmental studies and education. So I work with environmental nonprofits.
I see.
Thanks again for having us, Izumi. My name is Chris Stratton, and my most recent background was in building science research, but I have an educational background in architecture, and
Oh,
I've been sort of hands-on construction curious for a long time.
well, I guess you did that,
Yeah,
right?
I definitely scratched that itch.
So, and then tell me a little bit about the house and without giving out too much, tell me what you accomplished or what prompted you to take on this project and what were your goals?
Well, my main goal was to learn a lot.
Mhm.
Uh, that was definitely accomplished. Another one is to have a really pleasant, comfortable, resilient, low-cost house to live in. And then the third was financial viability, something that's going to pay for itself over time, both in terms of value and also reduced living costs.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, Projects can't happen if they're not financially viable. So those are three overarching goals.
And
right.
I'll talk a little bit about the house. This is a house in the suburb of Pasadena,
Mhm.
and it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom house. Looks pretty like typical suburban house from the outside. It's a ranch style, and I grew up here, like we mentioned before, and it was a pretty like standard house for this era,
Mhm.
and it was like in fine condition, but it wasn't very energy efficient. There was very little insulation, and the like air conditioner was really big, and the furnace was really big, and so it's I guess you could say it was like an
Mhm.
average suburban house in America.
Right, right. And so you grew up in the house, but you actually had moved out as you when you grew up, right? And you came back, correct?
Right, yeah. So I lived here for most of my childhood, and then after I graduated from college, I moved out. But my mother kept living here,
Mhm.
and so I was gone for about 10 years.
Oh.
Then in 2015, my mother sadly passed away and
Mhm.
left the house to me, and um, so we decided to move back in and use this as an opportunity to for not only for Chris to learn, as he mentioned, but also to just transform this house that I love into an example of a sustainable house that's net zero and all electric. And so that's sort of like the main motivation for doing it.
That's really exciting to hear for me. As I am actually in the middle of making my house that I live in, more efficient. We just got the insulation done last week. It got, yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, and I already feel a huge difference.
Well,
So
good.
In time for the cold weather too.
yeah, so I'm sure you can talk all about all that stuff. So tell me some of the categories, the major categories of the project. And by the way, how long did the whole process take? I mean, when did you start?
Hmm. Well, we have to talk about that, huh? Well, let's see. We started in design started in spring of 2016,
Oh, wow.
Construction started in September of 2016, and we finished, or October of 2016, and we finished the house in October of 2019.
Wow.
So 3 years of construction, and then add on another few months for design.
Right.
And so that's one of the trade-offs of doing it yourself, is that
Right.
it's slower. Yeah. Also, we were living in the house during the entire process, so that also slows things down.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, amazing. So tell me about some of the bigger categories of the work.
Sure. Yeah, I guess at the outset, I'd like to say that we're thinking about it as a system. Everything is interconnected, and a change in one category affects everything else. We try to think of it as one big project. But some of the individual components, the building envelope, the boundary that separates the inside from the outside, that's super important. So that's comprised of let's see, air sealing, which is like, so there's two components: air sealing and insulation. If you're if you're going skiing or something, so the insulation would be the wool sweater, but if the air is still going through it, it's not going to help. So you need that air sealing.
The windbreaker.
The windbreaker. So that's the windbreaker that keeps the air from coming through.
Yeah.
So building envelope. Then there's the electrification part. So we want to turn all the fossil fuel appliances into electric, so that we could change where the energy was coming from and reduce our carbon footprint.
Yeah, with solar panels.
And then it also has lots of indoor air quality implications.
Right.
And so part of that air sealing means that we're not getting as much fresh air coming in. So we have a dedicated ventilation system.
Right.
Which provides fresh indoor air in an efficient way, and keeps the indoor air comfortable, and it's filtered. Another part is the appliances. So the water heater, we converted to a heat pump water heater, electric heat pump. And then space conditioning. So instead of having the ducted central furnace and air conditioner, we had a 2-zone mini split heat pump system, where we separated the house into 2 zones and have the same system that heats and cools the space year round. And then finally, we're changing where all that power comes from. So we have photovoltaic solar panels on the roof, and we also have a battery, so that in the event of a power outage, we can still run our house, operate our house, and stay comfortable.
So you got rid of the gas completely, right?
Yeah, we had a sort of mini ceremony when we shut the valve off to the gas line.
Yeah. So the original uses of gas were the furnace, the heating, the water, hot water, the cooking range, and we had a fireplace that had a gas connection.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We didn't use, but is that it? More gas? I think that's it.
A dryer.
Dryer. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yes. Thank you. Dryer. Yes. Yeah. So those things all had to be replaced and or removed.
Right. Right. And so going back to the envelope. So I think for some people who may not know, it's the roof and the walls and the floors, right? That's what encloses the entire house. And so I know that I've seen some pictures. I'm going to show some pictures in a little bit, but tell me about the insulation that you've done. Like, I've seen some pictures that you've done. You took the walls out, right? And then put it down to the studs, and you added some layers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So part of doing this ourselves is that we wanted to do it from the inside. And the more efficient way would be to take a stucco off the exterior and put continuous insulation across the studs. But that was too easy. So we did it our way, which was to
or more like he didn't want to disturb the outside of the house.
Right.
Because then you have to, we wanted the outside to stay the same.
So we opened, like you said, we took off all the drywall and plastered the exterior and the interior, and opened up the walls and put rigid foam insulation in all the stud bays in between the studs and the rafters and the ceiling. And then we put part of the house, we put sheathing for seismic reasons to upgrade the seismic.
Right.
And then we put more continuous foam insulation, and then we put a service cavity so we could run all our electrical and some plumbing without having to interrupt that thermal boundary between inside and outside to make sure the wall performs as efficiently as it can.
Yeah, it's like if you cut a cross section of our walls and like turn it and look, there's like several layers. It's like a insulation cake.
Yeah.
Delicious.
So it went from about 5 inches thick or 5 or 6 inches thick to a little over 8.5. So it got a little thicker.
Yeah, thicker walls. And it's, I like to joke that we turned our house into a giant styrofoam box.
That's right.
I think a lot of people can understand that concept. Like, okay, if you have a box of styrofoam, you put food in it. If it's cold, it stays cold. If it's hot, it stays hot. So it's the same concept with the house. So in the summertime, it stays cool inside the house, and in the wintertime, it stays warm in the house because of all the insulation.
Right. That's really amazing. I think I'm gonna pull up some pictures. But how about you talked about the indoor air quality? So now that your house is really airtight, and how do you keep your indoor air fresh and clean? And so you said you have a filtration system or a ventilation system. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Do you want me to do it?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we have, sorry, I'm talking a lot. We have a dedicated continuous ventilation system. It's called an energy recovery ventilator, or an ERV. And so it brings in fresh air, which is great, but it also exhausts the stale indoor air. And while it's doing that, it exchanges the heat from the outgoing air into the incoming air. So you're not cooling really hot air in the summer or heating really cold air in the winter. It's tempered on its way in, so not paying that energy penalty for that fresh air. In addition to that continuous ventilation system, we also have a high filtration called MERV, is a rating system for filters. We have a MERV 13 filters in our HVAC system, our space conditioning system, so that when we're running that, we're getting whatever does get in the air out.
Yeah, it's pretty important to have some kind of ventilation system if you have a really airtight house, because otherwise there's a lot of pollutants inside the house that get trapped inside. Like when you're cooking, there's a lot of pollutants that come out. Also, just like breathing, right? Like CO2, you don't want that to build up. And so at first it was weird to me to have this ventilation system running like all the time, but it's really important because it's always constantly bringing air in from outside and spitting out bad air out. And like Chris was saying, there's a heat exchanger, so it saves energy in that way, because the cold air that comes in the wintertime is not as cold as it would be.
I mean, it's especially important now, today has a whole new meetings, with the COVID, with indoor air quality, we have to really keep it fresh and clean. And is that part of the HVAC system? How is that run? Is it in the attic, the whole system? Is it combined with your HVAC, or is it a separate system running separately?
They're two separate systems. They're ducted separately. Sometimes you can combine them. Sometimes they're separate. In our case, they're separate.
Yeah.
So
it is in the attic, though.
They're both in the attic.
The attic. If you go in the attic, there's lots of ducting.
Right.
But then you can't see it because it's covered in insulation.
Right.
If you go in the attic, it looks like snow. But under the snow, there's a bunch of ducts.
Yeah.
And the supply for the ventilation system is right there.
Oh yeah, he's
pointing to it. Yeah, so it's for the common room. And then the return is in the bathroom. So instead of, in lieu of exhaust fans in your bathroom, you just have continuous sucking. And one other component of the indoor air quality system is we have an air quality monitor. So we know the humidity and the particle concentration. So we're getting feedback on our system, so we can tweak things as we go. We also have a purifier, an air purifier.
Right.
And that with both of those were really crucial during the wildfires a little while back.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, there were these really there were a lot of intense wildfires this year, as most people know, and during that time, a lot of people had to live with the smoky smell in their homes because their houses were so leaky. And we were very grateful that we lived in a house where we could have fresh air inside.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, you were pretty close to that. Was it Bobcat or one of those?
Yeah, the Bobcat by,
yeah.
And we also have a baby daughter, and so
Right.
that was also really important to us to have good indoor air quality
Mhm.
when you have a baby in the house, and some a house that's very comfortable as well. And one of the main benefits of going electric,
Yeah.
you no longer have flames in the house. You're not burning stuff, and so that also makes the air quality better, especially with the high envelope.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me some of the things that you've done other than just the efficiency element, the skylight, and I love what you did with the ceiling. Can you discuss that?
Sure. We vaulted the ceiling in this common area that we're in right now.
Yeah, the ceiling used to be like, you see this loft area. This used to be the ceiling all the way across this room. It was like a flat popcorn ceiling, and it was really dark in this room. And so Chris is completely transformed.
Yeah,
so
I love the story about the ceiling material. Can you hear that?
Sure. So we were just debating on what to finish the material, the ceiling with. We wanted to make it interesting to look at, since it would be such a prominent aspect of the room. And so we got the idea from a friend of ours to reuse wood flooring. And we found a source for wood flooring from another house that was being redone, and we salvaged it and put it up on the ceiling. And it's not perfect. Like, you wouldn't want this on your floor because there's imperfections in it, but it's on the ceiling, so it's okay, and it looks nice.
Yeah, we like to joke that there's a floor on our ceiling.
Yeah, so we have an oak floor and an oak ceiling.
Yeah, and so I'll pan it around a little bit. So yeah, the room, like I said, had a flat ceiling, and now it's all open. We redid the kitchen to be everything is brand new, basically, with the electric appliances, but also the cabinets are new, the sink is new, the lighting is new, and it's just a really beautiful room right now. When you walk in, you're hit with a lot of light and a lot of openness, and yeah, we just love this room. Oh, there's a loft right here. that used to be part of the attic, and so Chris
I love the
saved some part of the attic to make a loft. There's stairs. You can go up the stairs.
And I love the story about how and I love the story about how you had to go through each plank, those little planks to
oh you want to talk about that? So the house that was demolished had cats, and so we had to be very
smelled like cat pee. Some of the wood smelled like cat pee.
I had to be very judicious about which ones we took, and I personally sniffed every single one.
I had a picture of Chris sniffing wood. Like, this is good. This is bad.
And we were worried about residual smell, but there's nothing.
Having had a cat that used to pee on the floor, I really appreciate what you had to go through. So having gone through this 3 years, almost, I mean, you recently got your Powerwall, so considering that, it's basically for almost 4 years of going through this, right? So how do you feel about your outcome? How do you feel like you were able to accomplish your goals?
Yes. Sorry, you might hear our daughter in the background. I feel good about the outcome. I mean, it took a long time. It took longer than we anticipated, and it cost more than we anticipated. That's not terribly unusual for construction projects, but in the end, the house is great. It's comfortable year round. The energy bills are basically zero. It has great indoor air quality. If there's a power outage, we can still live in it, operate. We don't even really notice.
Right.
And it's just such a pleasant place to be. So comfortable. It's nice to look at. There's good lighting, and that's been all the more valuable recently because we've been spending so much time at home.
Yeah.
In the house.
And in the photo that you showed briefly there, you saw the front yard, which we used to be lawn, and we removed all the lawn and replaced it with some planter beds to grow food. So that's another sustainability aspect of our house, is that we grow a lot of food on site, and it's fun, and it's also delicious.
Yeah, and you were sharing with your neighbors.
It's been a big community builder. Everyone can relate to food.
Yeah, it used to be that the neighbors didn't really talk to each other very much. And when I was a kid, I remember not really knowing the neighbors here because everyone's pretty shy and private. Right. Once we started the garden in the front, it started a lot of conversations, and we got to meet a lot of neighbors.
Yeah. And so what was the most difficult task that you had to do, Chris?
The most difficult. I feel like there's a lot of competition for this distinction.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like the design and permitting process was really hard. We had to find materials and equipment that was kind of uncommon. I mean, some places, some things you can find, but some things are more difficult and people haven't heard of. And then I had to try to learn all these trades, construction trades, which in retrospect was a crazy and sort of arrogant thing to undertake, but it kind of worked. I learned a lot, and I'm proficient. And then the just the toll, the physical labor day after day, month after month. But I guess if I had to pick one thing, I would say that it's probably I don't know if you could call it a task, but it was learning when to delegate and when to outsource and when to ask for help. I was a little too stubborn, I think. A little too ambitious sometimes.
Okay. So then what was the most valuable lesson?
I think that was the most valuable lesson is learning when to insource. So I'd say that the lesson is that you can insource everything, but that doesn't mean you should. So I think a really important skill with construction is knowing what you know and what you don't know, and being able to delegate tasks and managing the process and people. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson.
For me, I would say that I used to not be very knowledgeable about buildings. I didn't really think about what the homes that I lived in. And now that I am living in a net zero house with full insulation, I can really tell the difference. And it really makes a difference if your house is comfortable. It's not just like saving energy and being good to the environment. It's also just a much more pleasant living experience, where it's always 70 degrees in the house, no matter what it is outside, whether it's 40 degrees or 120, it's 70 inside. It's just, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I would imagine. So I think you already answered my question. So what would you do differently if you were to do this again? Well, would you do it again?
I guess my answer would be similar to the last one, or build off of that. I think if I were doing it again, I'd try to take a more sober, grounded look, like at the beginning, what I wanted to accomplish with the project. Try to be a little more clear-eyed about how much it would cost and how long it would take, and more judicious about the aspects of the project I would take on myself versus those I would delegate to other people.
Although because you did everything yourself, you now have experience in every aspect, so it's still it was worth it.
I can be a better manager and delegator now that I've done it myself.
Yeah. But I would think that this was absolutely worth your effort. Would you say that?
I think so. It was a lot of work. I learned a lot. Absolutely.
I feel like this is like something that we can be proud of for the rest of our lives. It's a big accomplishment, big personal accomplishment. And also, I mean, it's just great to be able to show that it can be done. Like, this house looks about the same from the outside. Like, you wouldn't really know by looking at this house, like, oh, this is like some fancy net zero house. It just looks like a normal house. But you go inside, it feels totally different inside. And I think that it's good for people to know that you don't have to have a fancy modern mansion, like whatever, to have like a fully green house. It could just be like a normal house.
It's kind of like
exactly.
a geode.
It's like a what?
Like a geode. It's like rough on the outside and you crack it open and it's full of crystals.
Yes, that's right. We're like a geode.
Geode. And I just love the fact that you kind of recorded, I mean, kept the the journal, and so everybody who's watching, you can go to frugalhappy.org and see all the glorious detail of this project, and I'm so grateful that you guys did that, because like I said, we just did the installation here, and I went back to your website and kind of read about what you did, just to as a reference point. And I think you guys are providing so much helpful, valuable information. And what you've done is amazing. And I'm so grateful to have met you and to have seen your house. And I wish you luck. I really hope that you will be on this movement with me of promoting green homes.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this video and insert some pictures that you sent me to, to match with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And repost it.
Okay.
So thank you so much again, Chris and Wen. Again, I am Izumi Tanaka. I am Home Green Homes, and you can find me at homegreenhomes.com. Thank you so much again, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.